didn't know today would be our last, and that I'd have to say goodbye to you so fast. I'm so numb, I can't feel anymore, longing for the day when you walk right through the door. Me that I was only dreaming, you're not really gone as long as I believe. There will be another angel around the throne tonight. Love lives on the side of me, and I will hold on tight. I'm not my place to question, only God knows why. There will be another angel around the throne tonight. You always made my trouble seem so small, and you were always there to catch me when I fall. In a world where heroes come and go, well, God just took the only one I know. So I'll hold you as close as I can, longing for the day when I'll see your face again. But until then, God must need another angel around the throne tonight. Love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight, singing hallelujah. God must need another angel around the throne tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Madeegha Anders. And by the way, Madeegha is also an ambassador for the organization Cancer. Good evening and welcome, everybody. It's the 7th edition of the Dialogue on Cancer hosted by Brimstone Investment Corporation Limited, Life Vincent Pallotti Hospital, and our media partner Smile 90.4 FM. I'd like to extend a very special welcome to our cancer champions here this evening, those that you'll see on stage, and the many of you in the audience together with your supporters, your friends, and your family. Please enjoy the evening with us. As you all know, this evening we are talking and discussing cancers in women, and we have an outstanding panel here this evening, as you'll hear from their journeys with cancer. Many of the doctors are here as well, and I would like to extend a special welcome to our team of doctors, Dr. Kathan, Dr. Boeddinghaus, Dr. Ndlhuni, Dr. Hoosen, Dr. Help me, Dr. Kieck. And this year, for the first time, we have a genetic counselor on the panel, and that is Amber Gardiner. Welcome, Amber. And I'm sure we're going to have some great insights from you this evening. To the listeners of both Radio Zebonele and Radio Voice of the Cape, it is being broadcast live this evening, so welcome to all of them. I would encourage them all to ask their questions. We have an extended question time this evening, so please send in your questions. Your presenters will pose those questions to the panel later. And to all those on social media, the hashtag for this evening is hashtag Cancer Dialogue 2019. Please use that and at Brimstone Limited in your social media posts. The video of this evening's presentation will be posted on YouTube. So please go to our YouTube channel, Brimstone Investment Corporation, and you'll see this and many of our other videos there as well. I now would like to welcome somebody that I'm sure you all listen to from 9 to 12 in the morning, Mondays to Friday, doing the morning show, and she's none other than a presenter on Smile 90.4 FM, Bailey Schneider. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here. I just want to extend a huge welcome to all of you. I know the weather outside is absolutely crazy, so just seeing the room being as full as it is, I appreciate your time. I'm going to take a seat and start the dialogue. Cancer is a word. It's not a sentence. But it's a conversation that needs to be spoken about, and it's normally a conversation that's really difficult to speak about. It's a conversation that makes a lot of us feel uncomfortable, feel vulnerable. It's a conversation that most of us are having more and more and more often because it is happening to more and more people that we know about. Tonight, we have got 3 champions who have got the most incredible stories. And it is such an honor for me to be able to chat to them and for them to be so brave and to be so vulnerable, because in vulnerability there is strength. So if you could please give them a huge warm welcome as we welcome on stage Asanda Vokwana. Please welcome Fatima Dhoda, yes. Okay. And lastly, Ncumisa Planga. So, Asanda, let's begin with you. Tell us your journey.
My journey actually started in 2015. I had just relocated to Shanghai, China, and I was there for the first 3 months. And I thought I was having a hard time adjusting. I hated the food. I was puking all the time. Everything smelled bad. You know, I was just upset. And during that 3 months, I was also bleeding heavily. At first, I thought it was my period, but after consistent 3 months, I realized something must be wrong. And the challenge was no one around me spoke English, even the hospitals. And so I decided to come back to South Africa and have myself checked out. My GP told me that I'd probably consumed so much soy products, so my lining was inflamed, and he gave me some tablets. A week later, I went to another doctor for a second opinion, and this doctor told me I'm pregnant. And I was like, okay, now I'm confused. And I was like, so how is this baby, you know, because I've been bleeding for 3 months. And she was like, I'm actually quite interested. I'll throw in a free scan for you. And so we went, and she looked, and she discovered at that time I had molar pregnancy. So I went through the whole suction, I went through the whole process. And I thought I was fine. It took me up until 2016, and I was cleared. And then last year, the bleeding came back, and I went to my gynecologist, and she found a tumor just outside my womb. And so I've been on this journey since last year, through chemotherapy, and actually now I'm in remission, actually. So.
How does that feel to be in remission?
It's very weird. Everyone around me was so happy. Everyone was celebrating, and they couldn't understand, why I was, I was just indifferent. I was just there. And I think, the trauma of going through chemo, and having to be present and to also work on your spirit so that, you show up there for your healing. It took a lot. And I had to be present. And when they said remission, it felt like the chains had just, broken. And I was only then dealing with the fact that I just had cancer. I've just been going through chemo. I've just had this poison in my body making me sick for all of these months. I don't know, it actually is quite traumatic. I'm actually in a recovery process.
Well, I'm glad that we have a psychiatrist here on the panel, because I think that is something that a lot of patients go through, and a lot of family members, and having to deal with, it's a ripple effect. Thank you. I know, Ncumisa, you are a registered nurse, working in which ward?
At Kingsbury.
Okay. Tell us how you discovered that you had breast cancer.
My journey started this year. And I was on duty when I have to go for a mammogram, which I forced myself to have it because one of the surgeons, breast surgeons, been saying, people, you must please go for a mammogram. But I was refusing to do that because I was saying, you mustn't scratch what you don't know. So I went for a mammogram on the 31st of January 2019. And on that day, I was on duty, working a 7/7 as a nurse. And I went there saying, I wonder why did I book myself in this thing? Then I went in and then I had it done. And bad news, I can say, were detected. I was told that there was a lump at 10 millimeters, about 10 millimeters small in my left breast, but I have to see the breast specialist, which I'm working with actually, and that is Dr. Ndlhuni. So I was so sad. It was dark. I felt like something fell down. So I was so upset. And before I went for that, I asked my unit manager to calm down, to back up me, because I wasn't sure. I was scared. Then I went in, and then yes, it was there. The tumor was detected. Then she was there to cry with me. I cried so sadly, as if I'm gonna die. Because, in our cultures, cancer and us are not friends. It's like you did something so big, you did something you didn't listen to your parents. You blame yourself for everything. And so I have this done. And then the next thing doctor said, the lady that was there that was doing it, the specialist, what do we call it, the radiologist, said to me, she's going to contact Dr. Ndlhuni, but she wants to do the biopsy because she was so worried about me. Then I said, go ahead. Then biopsy was done, and I had to see Dr. Ndlhuni on a Tuesday the next week, but I couldn't wait for that. The Monday when I went on duty, I confronted him. I said, where were my results? And he didn't even know that I did a mammogram. Then he was asking me which results. I said, I did a mammogram and I was told that biopsy results will come to you. Then he said, okay, I will look for it and then I will, as chilled as he is, he's always chilled. And then the Tuesday, I went to his office and he discussed the results with me. And he was so relaxed. He said, it is what it is, that is his slogan, eh? And he told me the treatment plan immediately. We have to have a surgery, which was done in February, on the 15th. And then surgery was done successfully, and then after the surgery, I had to have the dressings done on the day of my discharge. Then I had what he said was the angle of sorrow, which was the corners of the wound didn't meet together. So he said it happens sometimes. It happened to me then. So I had to see the wound specialist for 3 weeks before I went to see the oncologist. I was very upset though, because I was thinking, forward, I need to do this and get done with it. Then I had to do the wound, and then I had a vac drain for 3 weeks, and then I had to have what do you call it now? I had to go back to theater to do the skin graft for that wound. Then it was done successfully. Then I had to see Dr. Hall, who was my oncologist in Vincent, Pallotti. And she was so good to me. She explained everything. I was so worried when Dr. Ndlhuni told me that I'm going to have chemotherapy because I was worried I had long dreadlocks at that time. So that was my worry. Yeah. And then I started chemotherapy and I had 4 sessions of the Red Devil, which my hair fell. And I was okay with my Blescop. So I had it done and it went well, and I had, altogether I had 13 sessions of chemotherapy, which went well, and I started radiation. Now I'm on number 20, I'm going to 30. And it's so easy, I'm telling my husband every day that I'm on holiday now, from chemotherapy to radiation. So it's going so well, and I'm finishing next week, all went well. But what helped me so much is my faith and my salvation. I prayed so much, and it helped me through. God pulled me through. I'm so happy. That's my story.
Fatima, we're going to come to you, but you touched on something that I think is something that's really important to talk about. You said, don't scratch what you don't see. And that is something that is in quite a few cultures. Now, I know you and Asanda, you're both Xhosa, and you were saying to me earlier that cancer is still very taboo in your culture.
Yes, it is a taboo. As a result, my eldest sister, when I phoned her telling her that I had cancer, and she said, the first thing she said, did they cut your boob? Because in our culture, when you have one boob, you're called a witch. So she was so worried that how am I going to come home if I have one boob? So I said, no, and they didn't cut my boob. I still have my both boobs.
And for you, Asanda?
We're not exposed, to cancer that much, I must say, because my grandmother passed away of breast cancer. We didn't acknowledge it as breast cancer. We just acknowledged it as old age, because at the time she was 94. Right. So we just wrote it off as old age. And then my sister in 2014, she passed away of cervical cancer. Still then, we still brushed it off, and then I had cancer. Even today, actually, as I was sitting in the foyer, as I was sitting, there was cancer here. People were, and even in my spirit, every time that word is mentioned, something happens inside of me. It's like a fear. It's like a discomfort. And I was just noticing it just a couple of moments ago. So yes, it is something that, as much as it's been in my family right now, but we've never sat down and acknowledged that we have a cancer line.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think it's something we need to chat to the doctors about as well, to find out how we can change the narrative. So Fatima, we're going to come to you now, because you have had cancer not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Mm-hmm. Please share your journey.
My journey, I didn't think was that special, actually, until when you share with somebody that you've had cancer 4 times and you see the absolute surprise on their face, and you think, okay, well, maybe I am special. And I think through my journey, that's one of the things that I hear about all the time, is that, when people say the 1 in a million, don't worry, that you need to know these are the side effects, but don't worry, it happens to 1 in a million. I'm that 1 in a million. And yeah, definitely have the track record. My journey started a little while ago, 17 years ago. I think turning 30 is one of those key milestones in your life, from a career perspective and just life in general. You've got it. You are ready to take on the world. The last thing you want to find out is that you've been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I think also in our culture, it's not something, when my doctor had asked me, is there any history of cancer in my family? I honestly didn't know, because it was never spoken about. So in our family as well, I think I'm the first person that it's recognized and people are actively talking about it and trying to get a little bit more informed. So I was turning 30, I turned 30 when 17 years ago, and that's when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And Janene is one of the Vincent Pallotti radiotherapists. She and I have a disagreement around whether it was 17, 16, or 15 years ago. In my mind, it's 17 years ago. She was at Southern Cross, and she was one of the radiotherapists that had administered the treatment with Dr. Hall as well. Other than my family, Dr. Hall's one of those people that I've got the longest relationship with, 17 years. It's incredible. And she's fantastic. And so I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I'd gotten treatment from here to here. I was over the moon, because at that time radiation, and now as well, your hair doesn't fall off. So my hair was all the way down here, and it was really beautiful, and it didn't fall off. It was great. So life went on. I understood. You start to go to Dr. Google, which you're not supposed to, because you get the worst kind of synopsis or stories, and then you get a little bit more educated and you start to look out for stuff. And when you pass the 5-year mark and you consider, okay, I'm truly in remission, you kind of forget about it, but it's not completely gone out of your head. And you become a little bit more in tune with your body. Throughout that time, I'd never had a mammogram either, because there was just no reason to have a mammogram. I had radiotherapy, and through all of the scans that you go through, you'd think, and in that area, you'd think, no, you're cool. And so 12 years following that, I think it was about 2014, I'll never forget this, my skin was playing up. And it's amazing how you start to get in tune with your body, and you think, okay, that's weird. I'm not allergic to anything. This happened then as well, which is why I went to the doctor. It was manifesting in an allergic reaction almost, kind of. And so I went, and Dr. Hall did all of the tests. Dr. Ndlhuni as well was the one that did the biopsy. And I'll never forget, Dr. Hall said to me, Fats, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that your Hodgkin's has returned. The good news is that it's not in the area that was treated before. And so that was a little bit confusing, and again, 12 years down the line, and I try and figure out, well, okay, so you kind of make sense of what's going on in your head, that, okay, if you were prone to cancer before, it's in a different area, so the likelihood that it will come back, maybe you can make sense of it. So I had gotten chemo, and that was I finished in 2015, and again, life was good, and off you go. Last year, exactly a year ago, allergies came back, and I thought, no, this is not good. And I'll never forget, I think a friend of mine's here as well, we went bra shopping in the month of October, can you believe it? And in Woolies, and the lady, she was doing a bra measuring thing, and I thought, no, she can't be doing this right, something's hurting me. And of course, went to the doctor, and immediately went for a mammogram. And again, I thought, oh, this is easy, this is just a formality. I've had PET scans before, they would have picked up if anything was wrong. I would have felt something wrong. And then it was, you've got breast cancer, and just by the way, it's quite an aggressive type of breast cancer, so we need to do a double mastectomy. And of course, going through all of that, you know, okay, I don't quite understand, where does this come from, does this mean, and the thoughts that go through your head are quite scary, because you then think, well, am I going to be susceptible to every different type of cancer that's out there, and how do you prevent yourself from that, or from being diagnosed or going through that process again? So had the double mastectomy. Instinctively, I knew I didn't want to have reproduction. No, not reproduction. What do you call it? What's escaped my head?
Reconstruction.
The reconstruction, reproduction. Oh, yeah. Reconstruction. And of course, friends of mine were saying, but Fats, you know what, you still got your whole life in front of you. Don't be silly. Go and do it. So, of course, technology, medicine, science is incredible. And for those of you that don't know, they actually do the double mastectomy and they do the insertion of the expanders. It's one operation. It's a very long operation. But so that's what we had.
I think that is fascinating, because a lot of women who are not, you know, educated on that think it's two separate.
It's one, yeah. It's incredible. It's just done so seamlessly. It's incredible. And the support that you get. It's just, I mean, I saw some people outside as well. I forget, it's Reach for Recovery, I think it is. And the support that you get is unbelievable in the hospitals. Anyway, so the 1 in a million aberration, it will happen to anybody, it will happen to me. It was me, the expanders, my body rejected the expanders. And so in the course of, I think, two months, one surgery ended up being 4. 6 weeks away, ended up being 9 weeks away. And then you think, okay, come now, let's, you know, your coping mechanism my coping mechanism is, there's a problem, what do we need to do? Let's get on and just do it, and just let's move on. I mean, you know, keep a positive frame of mind as well. And so I started chemo in January, and I went to work. Nobody forced me to go to work, but again, it was my coping mechanism. I've got this, I'm in control. We'll sort this out. Finished chemo in May, and have scans done, and you think everything is okay. And 2 months later, just through normal cellulitis and what do you call that? I forget the scan now. And they discovered that actually it's returned. I think that was the biggest scare of my entire life. Before, I could make sense of every single touch point. So the first time, no, you can't make sense of that. But the second time, your Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's a different area. You can make sense of that. Breast cancer, Dr. Hall apologized to me. She says, the treatment that we gave you 17 years ago, we don't do that anymore. That's more than likely, that's what caused your breast cancer today. So I'm very sorry. And I went, no, you shouldn't apologize, because at the time, that was the right treatment for you at the time. Times have changed. So last week, I've just finished, I think it was my 25th radiation session as well. So very chuffed about that too. He's grown. And I think we just wait now to determine what the next steps are. More than likely, it's just going to be another chemo tablet, I think. I don't know. But we wait to hear. And that's, as I said, you don't think that your story is an incredible story or there's anything special about it. It's just the way you approach it. I think I do want to call out that the best way to get through stuff like this, it's your family and your faith. For me, that's the recipe to get through any kind of hurdle. And I mean, when you get it the first time, I'm not saying mine's 10 times worse than yours. I think going through chemo, even going through radiation today compared to radiation 17 years ago is very, very different. It's more advanced, and it's you know, you shouldn't be scared about it, because it's medicine, it's technology, it's science, and we need to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, your story is outrageous.
It is outrageous.
And at the same time, I'm sitting going, I mean, can I just keep this real? How have you managed to stay so positive? I know you've got your coping mechanisms, but to sit here and share that story with a smile on your face, how?
That's it.
I'm sorry,
You know what the
it's
answer to that
just-
is, but honestly, I think it's what the other two ladies would kind of relate to as well. It is really your faith, it is your family, and I think there's so much of information out there to destigmatize cancer. I'm not saying that it's something that can kill you, because we know that there's still no cure for it, but there's ways, and there's medicine, and there's just this, your support system I mean, I work for Woolies, my organization's unbelievable in terms of the support that I've gotten through this medical aid. I mean, we're very privileged, we're very blessed that we have access to the most incredible medicine, the most incredible doctors, researchers. It's unbelievable. So, I mean, how can you not do your part and be positive?
It's incredible. Asanda, I know that you say you have a family history. It was one that was never really acknowledged, but now going back you have. Fatima, do you have family history of cancer?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And Ncumisa?
No family history at all.
I'm really excited for the first time that we have a genetic counselor here tonight, because I definitely want to talk about that a little bit further. But Asanda, what surprised you most about your journey?
What surprised me most? Everything, the doctors were very specific in terms of like what my treatment would be. If it doesn't work, then this is what we're going to do next. This is the surgery that I'm going to need. But one thing that no one actually told me was my diet. How do I change my diet? I'm one of those people who hates medicine. I'm probably dying if I'm at the doctor. I've tried every herbal remedy, before going to the doctor. And so it was surprising for me that no doctor actually said, you know what, now your diet needs to change, because, according to the research that I came across, and the informal doctors in my life, it told me, that the type of foods that I should be staying away from. I found that surprising, that, there isn't a plan, because there was a plan for a psychologist within this process. I think that was like incredible. They took me and my family, through that process while I was going through chemo, and I thought that helped, because it got us to understand where each person is at and how to navigate through this journey. But the eating plan, no one came with that. It was only the medicine, only the poison, as I would put it.
And then at the end of the day, everyone suddenly becomes a doctor.
Yeah.
That is so annoying. That is so annoying. Your family, all of a sudden, they've got a PhD in Googling.
Yes. And they had a friend who had an aunt who had a friend who did this, and that happened, and yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing I think is what is, so basically reflecting on my journey and the individual that I am, is that you want to be in control and you're wanting to be doing something to deal with the situation that you're in, because that's your coping mechanism. And I think something that I took note of is the time that I wasn't getting any treatment was the worst. Because you feel like you're not in control. You've got this thing of, am I healed? Is it going to come back? And I think that's something that we don't address enough.
What surprised you most about yours?
What can I say? Actually, the most that was bad for me was because I went in as, 10 millimeters lump, it's too small. Then apparently my lymph nodes were affected. So, that was like a big smack on my face, because now I knew that I must have the chemotherapy, while I came in like with my mind saying, you're going to have only radiation and then that's it. So now my lymph nodes were affected, therefore I must go for chemo, which I know that all the side effects, because I am a registered nurse, as I told you. So, but what helped me the most is to just switch off to be a registered nurse, to be a patient. Then I decided to just delete all my knowledge, like whatever I know, I must just, even Dr. Google, I never contacted Google, hey? And nobody wanted to tell me anything because they know that I know everything. Like at home, they know, they ask me when they want to know something. So nobody gave me any advice. So I decided to be a normal patient. Even wherever I went for chemotherapy in Vincent Pallotti, I was just a patient. I didn't even say to anybody that I was a registered nurse. And I decided to respect whoever is telling me anything, like giving me any information. I was even given information by even the ENAs, like which are my juniors. And I would say, yes, sister, because I just wanted to be a real patient. Because should I use my knowledge, it's whereby I'm going to be messing with everything. So it helped me a lot. And I decided not to even read my books about anything. I couldn't.
So just trust the specialists.
Yes, exactly. I just trusted my doctors, my oncologist, and everybody that was on my journey. I didn't want to question anything. So yeah, that helped me.
I'll share. I have a very close family member who we have just discovered last week has been diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer that's now gone to her bladder. And it's come as a hell of a shock to our family. And the problem is, and I'll be completely honest, I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I don't want to speak too much. So for 3 women who are sitting here, who are going through it, who's in remission, what do you wish people would say to you, and what do you wish people would stop saying to you?
I think, for me, I didn't want anyone to acknowledge it. I just wanted everything to continue being normal. And for them to talk about it and address it, it meant that I had to deal with it. And I could see the fear in everyone. I could see the worry in everyone. And I wished to shut that down, but I couldn't. I think there's nothing anyone can say, to make you feel better. I think with this journey, something has to click from inside. And that's why, both of the ladies have mentioned that it becomes a spiritual journey. It has to be a God journey, because something from a supernatural power has to intervene, because nothing anyone says, is going to make you feel better. Yeah. And I just think that it's just the actions, I suppose, that people around you, show you, People came through for me, people came to my house with a cooked meal, people drove. I was still so stubborn. I was trying to drive myself from chemo and back. People were like, you're not going to do that, we're going to drive you, because I didn't want to be a burden. Just the little things, even the PhD Googlers, as much as they were annoying, but you knew where the heart came from, So I think the best thing is to just show people with cancer love. Just show them love. Just show them that you're there. Sometimes you don't need to say anything, but just to come, knock at their door, and sit quietly with them, because sometimes there's really nothing that needs to be said.
I think people feel very uncomfortable in the silence, though.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes, some people stay away because they're like, oh, I can't sit here in silence. And then people start over-talking. But that is such valuable information to know that that's actually just what you want. What would you add to that?
I think it's the patient, as the person, not the patient, patient, you're absolutely right. You want everybody just to be normal. And listening to you articulate that, and I'm processing it in my head, I think it's more difficult for your support, your family, your friends, to understand how do you be normal in a situation like this. And I can speak for myself. I'm that person. When I went back in January with my team, the first thing I did was call them in the room and I said, see, it's gone, it's not coming back. This is, and so you overshare and you to try to make them feel comfortable. And so you kind of talk about it as it's a non-entity. Don't worry, I've got this. So on a Friday, I'm not going to be here because I'm going for chemo, and more than likely I'll be ill Saturday, Sunday. I may be in on Monday, but don't worry, I'll be back on Tuesday if there's anything. And I'm not saying that's the best way of coping with illness. It's what worked for me and made your world normal. When you have aches and pains and you need to reach out to somebody, and if you are a control freak, your family as the ones who, are not going to judge, are actually just there to help and support. And you need to be as honest. And, when you're having that moment, you need to always say, not having a good day, I just want to have a good cry, and you just need to sit here and let me cry. Or and I'm very blessed. My brother and his wife are incredible. They're the only family I've got here in Cape Town. I've got friends that are family, but they're not on your case. They know when you go, okay, I'm tired now, I need to go and sleep. And they respect that, and that's okay. But not everybody has those kind of relationships, I guess. And I think that's when we try to overcompensate and make it normal for others.
So you spoke about being a burden, and I think that is a big lesson, is that people never offer help that they don't mean.
Yeah.
And yet we are the first ones that we don't want to accept help because we don't want to be the burden. So it's this weird cycle. But you said your coping mechanism, going back to work, trying to carry on as normal, yet at the same time, no one ever, with all due respect, on their deathbed turned around and said, damn, I wish I had gone to work more.
Gosh, so I've been home for the past 6-7 weeks. It's something that I've never done before. And I had to honestly sit back and say exactly that. Is that you've had cancer 3 times in your life. This is the 4th time. Clearly your body's telling you something. What are the triggers that are bringing this illness back? What do you need to do differently? And so when it comes down to stress or lifestyle or whatever it is, I mean, again, I can't go back to family members having cancer, so I need to look at what are you doing? And I think we live in a time where everything is so instant and so fast and so stressful. And as women, I just think that there's expectations, and this past 6.5, we're trying. I don't know if we're scared to be vulnerable. If we try, I don't know what it is. I just think it's lifestyle and stress that's creating this and that's what my body was telling me. And for 7 weeks, I've never taken time off, and I had to take time off and reflect and try and figure out, well, I don't think if I'm going to get a 5th time to go through cancer and say, well, what was the lesson? And so it was very difficult not going back to work. But you actually have to be kind to yourself, and you need to listen to your body, and you just need to take a breath. And that's what I'm trying to do, going back to work and trying to figure out how you're going to reset and not get caught up in those stressful environments. I don't know what the answer is, but certainly going to try.
But it's also interesting that you work for a company that is so supportive.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has that luxury.
Exactly.
You've taken some time off.
I took some time off. I decided to take some time off because once you're in this journey, once this journey starts, you don't have time for yourself because it's surgery booked. After surgery, you're going for the radiation, chemotherapy, and everything. So you don't really have time for yourself.
And you're a mom of 2.
And I'm a mom of 2, so I have to be a mom and I have to be a wife. So, and then to be at work, so I decided to take off. And actually, my company, Life Healthcare, my managers they explained to me that you're not going to get much and all that. But I said, as long as I'm going to get something, money can't buy my life. So I said, it's fine. Even if it's so little, it's fine. I just want to be at home. I just want to be myself. I want to take more time as much as possible. I'm still off until next year, I think in January.
Wonderful. I'm really glad you're taking that time for you.
So I'm so grateful to have a company that can
Yeah.
even pay you while you're on this journey, while I'm still off sick.
That is
So,
pretty incredible. What, with your work, were you able to take time?
I eventually did. I got diagnosed 3 months into my new role. And so I was like, okay, so do I tell these people or not? So I was like, okay, let me just keep quiet. Let me just see what's going to happen. And so at the beginning, the treatment that I was getting were shots. These medical terms, they're so hard on the tongue. But anyway, we did that for 2 months and it didn't work. I'd feel the after effects, and I'd be so tired. I'd go sleep in my car at my lunchtime. When we discovered that, it didn't work and it was going to be more aggressive chemo that I was going to get now, then I had to, disclose. And I was so surprised. My company was so. They were so forthcoming with information that they had, there was disability terms in there, and they took me through the journey and in the most supportive manner, and I actually appreciate that because I was a new employee, and they didn't care that they were pressed to actually hire me. They needed me in that role. And then I get there and I'm like, okay, cool, guys, I'm leaving now.
Which just adds to extra stress.
So I thought that was pretty cool of them. And they've gotten my loyalty for the time being.
It's amazing. Is there anything that you would want the audience to know? Anything that you want to share from your journey before we wrap up?
From my journey, I'd really would like, this was the hardest time of my life. And I feel like I've been having the hardest time of my life for the past 5 years. I just want to acknowledge, Sister Linky's department. Every time you get to Vincent and you get in there, the energy, it's like you're going to go hang out. It's like you're going to go hang out. There's so much noise, there's so much energy with them. They never tire. You get that on a daily basis. The care coordinator who introduced certain things that I didn't know, like she took me aside and was like, do you want counseling? I want you to try it out and let me know how you feel about it. And then I'll book you more sessions if that's okay with you. Not actually even giving me an option, but knowing, thinking on my behalf that will be something that I need. Getting beauty treatments, I have a problem. There's a friend of mine in the audience who likes to turn me to be ladylike. Bianca always, tries to force me to be ladylike, to put on makeup and stuff like that. And for the first time, Vincent Pallotti got a beauty therapist to come and teach us on how to apply makeup, and also taught us the importance of looking good for your family. So that they don't worry that much about you. So when you put on that makeup, they actually think that you are well, And
it's also self-care for you to also have that practice.
Yeah, because it's quite traumatic, She was talking about the fear of losing her long dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I had long dreadlocks and I didn't want to lose them. And they fell. And when they fell, oh my word. I was
I feel it. I feel it.
I
yeah.
was
Yeah.
distraught, but it just takes, it really takes a village for everything, I really would like to also say to the audience, also your family is the key players, I remember when I lost my hair, my brother came and he played a song, I Am Not My Hair, and he was laughing at me in the process because I had patches and patches, but but it really made the experience of it all.
Yeah.
And I just would like to really bless, Sister Linky and her department. They're doing an amazing job. They make us feel safe, when we get into that space. And they really hold space for us when we are breaking down. Because our lives are literally, breaking down. And they are there holding the pieces for us. And thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Ncumisa?
You know what I always say? I said to Sister Linky one day, you know what, I've got this now, I can say I added something in my career of nursing. Now I'm going to give health education. I'm working with, in the ward where breast cancer patients are going in. I will be having this experience now from inside, not talking from the book. So I will be giving the health education that is coming straight from my heart, not from the book. I will tell them straight, and I will know when they're saying this, then I will know what's happening. So I said, I've got this added something on my career, so I have more experience than ever. So what else I want to say is to thank you to the team, the doctors that looked after me. They like my family, They made it so easy for me. And the nurses, as Asanda already said, the nurses, Sister Linky's team, they are the best nurses I ever met. I even said to them, I salute them. Although I'm a registered nurse, also I salute them. They are the best nurses ever. I'm so proud of them.
Well, I think
And my family as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, family. My husband is here, so I'm so grateful for him to be here. He supported me so much. He's been with me every day when I'm in Vincent Pallotti. And on my last day, he wasn't there. Sister Linky was asking, only on the last day he wasn't.
it's like, you've got this.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. I think we've got a new Florence Nightingale here. And Fatima?
I've said before, faith and family are the two things that are the perfect recipe for you. But I think if there's one message to everybody out there, you can't take life for granted, and go and have yourself checked. I am that story of you've had cancer 4 times and I've never been for a mammogram. So you really need to listen to your body and have yourself checked.
Thank you. Please give these phenomenally brave women a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
And I really wish you well in your recovery.
Thank
I wish you well in your recession. And thank you so, so much. Really incredible for you to share your stories. I would like to call out a cancer patient who will be performing for us. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2006. She is still receiving treatment. In 2014, the cancer spread to her bones, and what I loved when I met her, she goes so proudly, and I'm still here. So positive, so beautiful. Please welcome Janene Santana. Janene, Santana, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so, so much. I would like to invite our other heroes to the stage. Could you please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Jacqueline Kieck, radiologist. Please. Thank you. Oncologist Dr. Irene Boeddinghaus. Our other oncologist, Dr. Louis Kathan. Psychiatrist Dr. Hoosen. Our breast surgeon, Dr. Ndlhuni. And our genetic counselor, Amber Gardiner. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so, so much for absolutely everything that you do, for giving up your time this evening, and for just being a beacon of light for so many people. The lives that you touch daily is just, there are no words for it. I want to start with you, Amber, though, because it is the first time we're having a genetic counselor on board, and it's really fascinating to hear that two of our ladies here have no family history that they know of, and one does have family history that wasn't really acknowledged. So tell me a little bit more about what genetic counseling is, and then how do we explain the case of Fatima and Ncumisa?
Is this working? Hi. Thanks for the question. I think you already alluded to that. Some genetic questions would come up. So we always say that, any cancer is an interplay of both genetic and environmental factors. We know that some people have perhaps a predisposition to developing breast cancer due to a family history or hereditary factors. And it's always a question when we hear that people have a family history of cancer, whether, are we seeing cancer in your family because unfortunately cancer is common? Or are we seeing it because of hereditary factors? And often that's not a question that we can easily answer without going a bit further and perhaps doing some genetic testing.
Okay, all right. So I am going to open up our question and answer session to our audience. This really is an opportunity for you to become sponges and squeeze our experts and get all the knowledge and information that you need. And please remember, there is no such thing as a stupid question. So please ask away. We do have roaming microphones around, and I'm going to ask for the house lights to come up a little bit just so that I can see. Do we have anyone that wants to start first? Oh, there we go.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Nadia Charles. Dr. Ndlhuni, Dr. Kathan, I love you. Thank you so much for all your support. I am completely and immensely grateful for what you are doing for me and what you've done. So the question, for the benefit of myself and the audience, please can you explain in simple terms, what does low-grade sarcoma mean?
Mr. Charles, thanks for the question. So all tumors are graded, and that's the way it looks under the microscope. So low grade basically means that it's very unlikely or less likely to spread distantly. And it basically is a histological diagnosis, so how it looks under the microscope and how many, what we call mitosis by high power field. So, how abnormal the cells actually look under the microscope.
Do we have another question?
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Zubaida Bray. My mother died of breast cancer 22 years ago. And during preliminary tests for a right hip replacement this year, they discovered an abnormality in my blood. And I then, of course, had to go for a colonoscopy, a gastroscopy, etc. They confirmed there was one polyp in the colon, a 2-centimeter one, And after that, I had surgery, and it appeared as if everything was fine. But I did go and see the oncologist afterwards, and the oncologist said, you know, as a precautionary measure, you should maybe go for chemo. Now, I want to know, I have family members who've also had cancer, and of course with my mom's history. I want to know, did I do the right thing? Because I know that chemotherapy makes one very, very sick, and it affects your immune system, the quality of your life goes. And I was then told if I don't want to go for chemo, I should have 3 monthly blood tests done. My first blood test came out clear, and I've opted to just have the blood tests done. Because according to the surgeon, there was a 2-centimeter lesion. They removed 20 centimeters of colon, 15 centimeters of glands around there, checked 11 nodes, and all were clear. Did I do the right thing, or am I being stupid? But I have got a great belief in medical science and the advancement in technology. I don't know if I've done the right thing. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your question. I think that's a really fabulous question, because what you are illustrating here is the fact that there is no absolute right answer. There's only the right answer for you. And I think that's something that we all have to remember, that, and alas, us doctors get confronted with this all the time. Our predictions are not perfect, and we try so hard to give the right answer, but sometimes it's not 100% do this, do that. It's not always that clear. So you have definitely done the right thing, because you have made an informed decision that's right for you. And you must always remember that. It needs to be right for you. Not right for anybody else, not right for your family, not right for your friends, but correct for you. And once you've informed yourself of the pros and cons, you can't make a wrong decision, because it's the decision that's correct for you. And I think that applies to all of us here.
Wow.
I hope that helps.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. May I just add one more thing? Thank you. That really affirms what I wanted to hear. But I must tell you that I have a support structure, a family support structure, second to none. Mm-hmm. I just want to say that and share that with you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zuli Wekioba. I just want to find out how many stages are there in cancer, and then which stage seems to be the most dangerous, where you can say it's no longer curable. Thank you.
That's a really broad question. The first thing to remember is that cancer is not one disease. Where am I looking? I can't see the lady who asked the question. Can you put your hand up for me? There we go.
Wow.
Okay, thank you. I was looking generally. So, cancer is not just one thing. So different cancers are staged differently. So do remember that, what might be a stage 1 for a breast cancer is very different to a stage 1 for a lung cancer, and they can be in different places and have done different things. So watch out for that. But in general, staging refers to how far through your body the cancer has spread. And stage 1 cancers tend to be smaller cancers that are localized to their place of origin. So if you're a breast cancer, you're still in the breast. If you are a colon cancer, you're still in the colon, etc. Stage 2 generally refers to cancers that are still in the main localized, but they've spread a little bit further, maybe to a gland that's closest by to that organ of origin. Stage 3 tends to refer to cancers that have spread beyond that, but not long distance. It's like, our kids, when they leave home, they first of all, move out the bedroom, then they want to go and live in the garden flat down the bottom of the garden, and then they're happy to move out, and, finally they go overseas when they're grown up, and they leave home for good. Stage 4 tends to refer to cancers that have spread way beyond the organ of origin and can be found somewhere else in the body. Now, whether they are curable or not depends on the nature of the beast, if you like, how the cancer itself acts. So you get some stage 4 cancers that are still completely curable. For example, testicular cancer. Testicular cancer in men, even when it's stage 4, is entirely curable. Lance Armstrong, bless his cotton socks, taught us that one. But stage 4 other cancers are not necessarily curable, so it kind of depends. I'm not giving you a straight answer, but that is how it works. So as the staging goes on, they've moved further through the body, and depending on what kind of cancer they are, different stages have different rates of cure.
Yes.
Good evening to everybody here. My question is to the 3 black women in the middle here, and it's about tradition and how, tradition has always been in the aspect of wholeness. So sometimes wholeness means whole body or your spiritual aspects and stuff like that. So for me, my question to you 3 black women is based on what your experience was in what you were going through with cancer versus what your background taught you about being human, in the sense of losing certain aspects of your physical body and your spiritual aspects based on this modern concept of cancer.
Who wants to?
Oh, Lord. That's my partner, by the way.
You are going to be in the dog box.
Traditionally, I think as a closer woman, you would, the protocol would be to go to a sangoma, to go consult. As you said, there's something that you have done or something that was done to you. Yes, a curse. And then you go through, the cleansing period and all of that. But I think for me, it was a spiritual shift. I had to just submit to a higher being, and just have faith. Just practice on a very dense faith experience, basically. Especially since this was in my, just outside my womb. I'm constantly even now worried whether would I be able to conceive, and what does that entail as a woman if I cannot conceive, and I don't have the answer of it except for the fact that it is something that is daunting, but I think the journey that I've been through in terms of praying and having faith, I've seen a supernatural, occurrences happening in my life, and yeah, I just have faith. I don't know.
Traditionally, it didn't affect me much because, as I said, salvation helped me. I'm a born-again Christian, therefore I have grounds on it, and I couldn't go to sangomas, unfortunately, and I didn't even think about it. And another thing is, I didn't lose anything. I had only lumpectomy, so my boobs were still intact. So there was nothing to worry about.
I think that's a very hard question to answer, actually. One of my very recent, very big lessons, and I've learned this through really close friends of mine who forced me to go down this route, and I thank them today, but it was this whole, so yes, your faith gets you through, but in those darkest moments, you really get tested. I'm Muslim, so we believe in the Almighty and He has the ultimate plan. But in your dark moments, you sit there and you think, okay, I'm supposed to surrender, but I am scared out of my mind about what is going to happen next. And you have those really deep, dark conversations. But your faith is what grounds you, it keeps you just on the straight and narrow. And I tell you, the lesson of learning to surrender to the highest power, it's not easy. And when you get through that, it actually is quite liberating. It's hard, and I think it's a lesson that we can bring into our day-to-day lives as well. Is that, you know, the circle of control and circle of influence and all of that. I mean, I had a question earlier on around non-related and non-related cancers. I mean, what keeps me up sometimes in the middle of the night is, oh my God, what type of next cancer am I going to attract? But there is no science, well, I don't think there is, or it's one of those things. So I don't have a proper answer for you, but there is that paradox of those difficult questions of surrendering to higher power and not being in control, and just knowing that it's your faith and your family that keeps you rock steady, I guess.
Thank you. I just want to ask you, Dr. Ndlhuni, I'm probably going to say this incorrectly, but what is the difference between a mastectomy and then what you mentioned, a lumpectomy? What is the difference?
So maybe what I should do is start by answering what the gentleman asked. I'm the one who tends to see all different kinds of women, yellow, green, pink, black, white. I must say the reaction to losing a part of your body is exactly the same, irregardless of any race at all. So you find the devastation is exactly the same. And the same applies to the partners. They do take a lot of strain as well. So I don't think the color is of any relevance at all. Yes, there's religion and culture, but at the end of the day, if you listen to Fatima talking about the Muslim religion or in Muslim culture, or Ncumisa talking about the Xhosa culture, you find the fears are the same. So I don't think it's a major issue. Okay, then in terms of the operations, we had Fatima talking about the mastectomy. Mastectomy is when you lose the whole breast completely. Fortunately, these days one can have a reconstruction, which is in most cases, apart from a few cases, seamless, where you do walk out of the hospital with a new breast. And then the other extreme is just losing part of the breast, which is a lumpectomy. Okay. And again, the way it's done is better in that in the old days, we used to take out the lump on the one side, but now we take out a bit of tissue on the other side, just so there's some balance. So you end up walking away with a boob job.
I see why you are so charming. Can we get some more questions from the audience, please?
Right from the floor.
Good evening, panel.
Hi.
Oh, there you are. There you are. All right. Thanks.
My name is Elisabeth Kastner. My mother, she died of breast cancer in '95 in Europe. And at the time when she was diagnosed, I went there and they removed the lump and the doctors all said, no, we all got it in time, no problem. A year later, she passed away. And again, I went to the doctor and said, listen, you know, you told me it was fine. And they said, yeah, but we couldn't see it was so small that we couldn't actually detect that there was still something there. So that was in 1995. I was diagnosed 6 weeks ago with breast cancer, and I'm not a great, I don't favor the Western medical world very much. I'm a more alternative thinking person, and I was diagnosed not through the Western medicine, but through 2 alternative medicines. The one is called the Rife machine, and the other one is called thermoscan. I don't know if any of the panel is aware of those theories, but I do believe in it. And both theories told me that it was very much in a beginning stage. I am open-minded, so I went to a Western medical breast clinic, and I had a mammogram against my wish, really, because I believe the mammogram actually exposes us to radiation, which I don't want to be exposed to. And I also had an ultrasound. And I was explained by that professor who did that examinations that when a lump is visible on a mammogram, then the cancer is already in the breast at least for 4 years. My alternative theories, they're telling me that they can already detect it in a much earlier stage, which obviously means earlier than 4 years. Is there anybody who would like to comment on that?
Hi, good evening. Can I just check exactly what you're asking? Are you saying whether we can detect on mammography how long a cancer has been there? Is that your question, whether we can tell?
Yes, that is one question, and the other question is, let's say that my alternative diagnoses are correct, how would you treat it?
So unfortunately the thermoscans and the other scan you had, there's no research supporting them or showing how effective they are. So we at Vincent Pallotti, we don't use thermoscans at all because there is no proof that they actually work. Mammography has been the gold standard for many years, and research has shown that breast cancer deaths have decreased by at least 40 to 50% since we've been using screening mammography. So almost half fewer women are dying from breast cancer because of mammography. So that's what we use because we have the research supporting that. To answer your question about radiation, it's all the radiation we use with mammography is all within international standards. So we're very aware that we do not want to do any harm. So it is a low dose. The newer mammography machines tend to have a slightly higher dose because we do more sophisticated views. But again, it's all within safety standards. So we do take that very seriously. If you have a single mammogram in isolation, so you've never had previous mammograms, you can't really tell based on the mammogram alone how long the cancer has been there. Some cancers can sit there for 10 years and grow extremely slowly, and only if you have your previous mammograms to compare can you really say for sure it's been there. But your cancer might have come up in the last 6 months and been a fast-growing cancer. You can tell that by the biopsy. They can test a biopsy and they do what they call a K67, which tells you how quickly the cells multiply. So that'll give you an idea of how fast this cancer has been growing. But in general, the single mammogram in isolation, I'm not sure how you can tell, unless your professor did a biopsy and he had the information from that.
could I just jump in here and say that you've brought up a really important point, and that is, once again, there are two things from this. One, we recognize, and it sits with, I think, every single treating physician and allied professional, that there's a long way to go. And none of us successfully cures everybody that we treat of cancer. And, you know, it's something that drives us onwards each and every day to try and improve upon that. And every failure cuts deep. And it's hard to bear. And all we can try and do is improve each time. But no one's perfect. And the one thing about that Jackie was saying there is, the thing about mammograms is we all know, forgive me, mammograms miss cancers. But the thing is, we know that, and we've got stats on that, and it's quite well documented how many you miss, in which cases you are likely to miss them, and in which cases mammograms are actually likely to be very successful. And that helps us judge whether a mammogram is an appropriate investigation or not, and whether we're likely to be missing something or not. And at least the stats are there. So we're able to look somebody in the eye and say, look, it's not 100%, but we know that in your case, it's likely to be very good. Or in your case, actually, we can see that the mammogram is not such a helpful investigation and we'll have to try something else. Our big problem with these new technologies is not that they don't work necessarily. It's just that they haven't been around long enough and been tried in lots of things and proven how well they work or not. And that's something we'd love to have, because then we can look somebody in the eye and say, listen, a thermogram is a fantastic investigation. It's been tried out in 10 million women, and it really works really well in 98% of them. Then you can look, then you've got some proper stats behind you. But until we have that, well, then we don't, yes, it might have picked up someone's cancer, but we don't know whether that was just a lucky find or not. So that is where we have the difficulties with these alternative technologies. I don't know about you ladies, but I can't wait for something to replace the mammogram. An annual squish is not a nice way to have to go. The other thing that you point out, and I think this was alluded to by you earlier, when you mentioned that you were quite surprised that nobody talked about diet. And I think that's something that we as practitioners of Western medicines really need to pull ourselves up on. We're really great at giving out all the toxins out there, and listen, they do work. You know, you get bang for your buck. But we have to remember that, you know, the increase in cancers is so much a lifestyle thing that we really have to remember that lifestyle, even though it's a slow thing, and by eating well today, you're not going to make a difference tomorrow. It's a 30-year commitment. But we have to start making that commitment and reminding our patients that they actually also, the power lies within you guys as to how you can do it. It's not just the doctors. You guys can make such a difference. And you take it on by living a healthy life. Yeah, it's a long-term commitment, but what great thing isn't a long-term commitment? And that's part of our treatment, and it really should be more emphasized. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you so much. There's a question that has come in for Dr. Hoosen about the psychological aspects. I know the ladies spoke a little bit about it, and you know, the big question is, are you seeing more and more patients coming in just as patients, or patients and families?
Okay, thanks. So I think firstly, increasingly there's a recognition of the importance of mental health in cancers, and I think previously it was just a lot of focus on the physical health care and the physical treatment of cancers. And increasingly what we're finding is that where you have cancer and depression and anxiety, it has a significant impact on the quality of life. So if you compare patients who have cancer and depression, they usually have a worse quality of life than ones who don't. And even the outcomes are worse. So it's really important to, at a very early stage, actually picking this up and detecting the presence of depression and anxiety is really important if you want to help and improve the quality of life and also the outcome of patients. And also importantly, mental health even in the partners, so the support mechanism. Because you as an individual with cancer, you may not have depression, but if your partner has depression, that has a negative impact on your quality of life. It even goes to the extent that if a person who has cancer, for example, a mother who has cancer and depression, it can then lead to behavioral problems in the children. So the point I'm trying to make is that mental health is so fundamental, right, in the whole family. So be it in the cancer patient, be it in the child, be it in the partner. So this is something that hopefully will continue to become more and more important, but we're starting to pay more attention to it, and we're starting to realize the importance of treating it, and the treatment even is holistic. So, we had our cancer survivors talking about spirituality, and we know within mental health that's very important. So, treatment is from medication through to psychological therapy, all the way through to spiritual treatment, and a combination of all of that. So, I think one of the problems we find is that just in the general population, there's an under-detectment of mental health problems, let alone in cancer patients. And the rates are much higher in cancer patients than they are in the general population.
Thank you so much. I believe we do have some questions from our radio stations that are broadcasting live at the moment.
Hi there, it's Mohammed here from Radio Voice of the Cape, right up here.
Where are you? There you are.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just have two questions. The first one goes as follows. Supposing doctors detect that you're at risk for breast cancer based on your genes, is it possible to manipulate genes to try and prevent that mutation from expressing itself in future such that you don't get breast cancer? The second question is that comes from our next listener, which goes as follows. How effective is using cannabis oil or cannabis derivatives in the treatment of breast cancer?
Wow, it's the gene one, and you can answer the cannabis one.
All right, do you want to handle the...
Sure.
Yeah.
So, good question. I mean, it is one we get asked often, is about gene therapy and can we manipulate our genes, and unfortunately not yet. The idea about knowing whether you carry a faulty gene that predisposes you to developing cancer is almost having an understanding, or a better understanding then, of your risk. We all have a risk for cancer, but as soon as we know that we have a faulty gene that will predispose us, we know then that that cancer is increased compared to what we would consider being the general population. What we then do about understanding that risk, there's many things we can do, okay? Often making people more aware of their lifestyle choices, but also things that we can do to try and reduce the risk of cancer. So, for example, in breast cancer, if there's a woman who carries a faulty BRCA gene, you may have heard of before, we know that their risk to develop breast cancer goes from 10% general population risk to as high as 85% chance, which means that risk is significant enough that we need to do something about it. And those women are given the opportunity to discuss with a surgeon risk-reducing surgery, so having a bilateral or double mastectomy to remove their breast tissue to hopefully significantly reduce that risk of them developing a cancer. So that's the way that we can use genetic information to inform management, also increasing screening. We're not going to leave a woman who's at 85% risk until she's 40 to have a mammogram maybe once every 2 years if she remembers about it, but rather we're going to start with screening at a much younger age and ensure we're being more vigilant about it. So we can't change the genes yet, but we can try and better understand them and treat individuals individually, if I can say it like that, by using their genetic risk in a meaningful way. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And the second question.
Okay, I'll try and answer the second cannabinoid.
Okay. My name is Liwe Kyoba. I'm from Zibonile Farm. So one of our listeners also dropped a question asking that, in fact, she's not asking, she's saying that she visited a clinic sometime this year and then doing a pap smear, to do a pap smear, and then it was then discovered that the blood was discovered during the process of the pap smear. And then now she was advised to visit the clinic again due to that blood that was discovered. Now she wants to know, how safe is she in getting cancer? What are the chances, seeing that blood was discovered during the process of the pap smear? And the second question from another listener, which is Nzikazi, she wants to ask, what is uterus cancer and how is it curable, and how long does the treatment take to cure the uterus cancer?
All right, so we'll get into those two questions, and then we'll get into the second question about the cannabis after that, just so we don't get all muddled.
I'll answer the cannabis question.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So cannabinoids have been around for a very long time, and like all other medication or any other treatment, it doesn't agree with everyone. That's the first thing. Whether it's prescribed by a doctor or not, people are using it. The only thing I'd like to advise is, if you are using cannabinoids, make sure it's from a reliable source. That's the first thing. Secondly, be honest with your healthcare practitioner and tell them that you're on it, because there could be drug interactions. There have been lots of studies out there and lots of lab-based studies that show that there is potentially some anti-cancer activity, but generally it's used for symptom control, so to improve your appetite, pain control, for sleeping, those sorts of things. So it is being used, and speak to your healthcare practitioner and actually see what his advice or her advice is, and see what will actually be appropriate for you.
Thank you. Do you want to answer the other two questions that came through?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat the first question. I was still stuck on the.
Okay, so she's saying that she visited a clinic sometime this year, right? And then to do a pap smear. And then during the process of doing the pap smear, blood was discovered. I'm not too sure whether in the womb or one of the cells that were collected in doing the pap smear. And then she was then advised to do the pap smear again next year. Now she wants to know, how safe is she in getting the cancer, seeing that blood was discovered during the time she actually did the pap
so
smear?
Generally when one has a pap smear, you're looking for abnormal endometrial cells. And the presence of blood there doesn't necessarily mean that there's an abnormality, but it means that it's difficult to interpret your pap smear. So you have to have it repeated just so that it can be looked at better. The presence of blood in the pap smear itself is not what we're worried about. It's just that it makes it difficult to interpret. Pap smear is so that I think we can leave with that. She needs to have it repeated just so that they can accurately have a look at that pap smear, and they're not getting sidetracked by the presence of blood.
Okay.
And your next question was about uterine cancer,
Yes.
and the treatment of uterine cancer.
Yes.
Okay, so this is where us doctors get a little bit sticky, because uterine cancer, as used in a general discussion, can mean all sorts of different things. And I've had people asking me about uterine cancer, and then they mean endometrial cancer, they mean myometrial cancer, they mean cervical cancer, and all three of these things are sort of related to the uterus, and they're very different actually. So it's a bit difficult to answer that question without being in a bit more specific in doctor speak. So I'm sorry to be not to be able to answer that properly, because I'm not entirely certain which of those cancers the listener is referring to, and the treatment does depend on that.
All right. Is it okay to ask another one?
Sorry?
Now, I wanted to ask, is it okay for me to ask a third one?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So I've got another listener here. He's saying that, like in terms of how long does a cancer hide itself?
How does the cancer hide itself?
Yes.
Oh my! How long can a cancer hide itself?
Yeah, how long it actually
my
can hide
goodness
itself.
me. Well, I'll give you a personal statistic. I think the longest time that I've ever seen a cancer hide itself, and I'm not joking, is 30 years.
Wow.
So this was when I was still a very junior doctor, and I was specializing in England, and I used to do a clinic out in a very far-flung bottom part of London that nobody else wanted to go to. And I met the most amazing ladies, and there I met one elderly lady who 30 years ago had an operation that they don't do anymore for breast cancer. It's called the radical mastectomy. And in those days, and I'm happy to say we have improved, and the good doctor in Ndlhuni would never do anything like this. But they used to take the whole breast off, and not just the breast, but the underlying muscle as well. And so she just had a thin layer of skin over her ribs, and you could see almost right through into her lungs. She'd had that 30 years ago, and there, smack on the spot where the original cancer was a new cancer regrowing. And there was nothing left, so it couldn't have been a new cancer. That cancer must have been sitting there for 30 years. So if you can sort that one out, you win the next Nobel Prize for medicine. No jokes. Can hide a long time.
Thank you so, so much. And I think maybe I see one hand. We'll have one last question from the audience. There we go. This gentleman over here, if we can just get a roaming mic, please. Are they gone? I'm sorry. Do you want to shout it out?
Okay, forget about my story. We know there are various types of cancer. It's common for breast cancer patients. We can do a self-test.
Anyway,
We know that with testicular cancer, you can do a self-test. But there's other types of cancer. What self-tests can you do for those?
Who wants to answer that?
Oh dear, okay, I got the mic. I'll have to answer. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very easy for those cancers that are kind of on the outside, where we can find them and see them, including skin cancers. So if you're like me and you turn a shade of tomato, if you stand in the sun for too long, you should go and see your dermatologist. You should look to get your skin checked so that you can have those things. But the internal ones, of course, are very difficult. Now, it brings us to quite a sticky point, because although we know that with many cancers, early detection saves lives, the question is, should you now be running off to your friendly radiologist and having a scan from top to toe, every year just to check the inside bits of you? Does that help? And if once a year is good, is maybe every 6 months even better? And if every 6 months is better, why don't you go every week? And you can really go down the plug hole of that kind of problem. We have to actually sort of take a step back and say, well, you know what, is looking inside always a good thing? And sometimes it's not, because we look inside and we see all sorts of things, and then we have to ask our surgeons to go and grovel and do operations, and they themselves cause complications. And we have to actually probably take a step back and say, well, these kind of things are not always the solution. Maybe the best thing to do is to really go back even further and say, right, let us try and live the healthiest life that we possibly can do, rather than going to an investigation all the time and just trying to look all the time or do blood tests all the time. In fact, this has been shown, and you can translate it into doctor speak again, and we know that routine scanning from top to toe all the time actually, in the long term, doesn't save lives. It creates problems, and you land up making work for people like us, because we have to unpick all of this kind of thing. And many doctors can make a lot of money and do a lot of unnecessary investigations if we try and do that kind of thing. It's not a good way to go. It really isn't.
Thank you so, so much. Can we please give our doctors a huge round of applause? And again, thank you so much for all the incredible work that you do and the lives that you touch. I mean, just hearing everyone speak tonight about you all has been fantastic, so thank you so, so much. I'd like to ask Dr. Kieck, and I'd also like to ask Regan Vukas from Life Healthcare to come and hand out some incredible vouchers. They're sponsored by Dr. Morton and Partners. We've got 6 mammogram vouchers chosen from the registration forms. We now know how important it is to go for a mammogram and how incredible early detection is. So I am going to ask Dr. Kieck and Regan Vukas to please present those.
Thank you, Bailey. We have been given 6 complimentary mammograms by Drs. Morton and Partners, who are based at the Life Vincent Pallotti facility, and you've got a few other facilities over the city. So these mammograms are valued at just under 2,000 Rand. For the 6 people who have been selected out of the lucky draw, you will have remembered that you filled in your name as you entered the facility this evening. So if it's not something you need or can use for yourself, please pay it forward to someone who can. So without any further ado, just before we read out the names, you will not come up to the stage now to collect your prize, but please report to the Brimstone station at the entrance after you leave the hall, and you can collect it from there. So Dr. Kieck, if you'll assist me to read out the names.
Ncumisa Abrams, she's in the room. Veronica Zimbai, Marlon Davids, Tracy Leisegang, Holeka Mzembe, and Moira Baptista.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you so much. I really hope that you have found tonight incredibly valuable. I think a big lesson that we can take away is that knowledge is power. And I really wish you well. I thank you so much for having me. This has been my greatest honor to be here with you all tonight. And so to close the evening, I would like to invite Mushtaq Bray, the CEO of Brimstone and the chairman of Life Healthcare. Please put your hands together.
Good evening and assalamu alaikum. It's really been an outstanding evening here tonight, once again. Nisara, I didn't realize it's for the 7th time that you've spent our money, but it's been well spent. Really, it's been very, very informative to our cancer survivors and our cancer champions. Being so open about your journey and so enlightening to all of us, it's been extremely educational. I mean, I've made a lot of notes for myself, in actual fact, and one of the biggest things that I think came out here tonight is we must watch what we eat as well. It's not just about medicine and all of those things. And there are a lot of lessons out of there. You know, watch your stress levels. I know we all live in a very stressful life, but it's stuff which you can try and accommodate for yourself as well. So really, just for all of you guys coming out here tonight to spend the time here with us, especially our cancer champions, Asanda, Fatima, and Ncumisa, thank you very, very much for sharing your very, very personal stories here with us. I am very glad that Life Healthcare has looked after you, is looking after you. I will send the message to the chairman of the REMCOM to compliment him. Thank you very much for that. And to the specialists, every year you come out here, you really do your job very, very well. We are really very thankful for the support that we have from the team that does this great work at Vincent Pallotti. We are really very proud of it. Our new manager's around as well, so I'm sure and if you don't get enough support from him, please come and tell me, okay? I can try and encourage him a bit more. And then to our anchor, Bailey, thank you very, very much for being such a good anchor here tonight. It's been great. The fact that you could be here tonight in such an advanced stage, and I hope you're going to be using one of our hospitals to deliver. We need the business badly.
I felt I was safe because I had lots of doctors on hand. Thank you.
And then the other thanks must go to our media partners. We got Smile, 90.4, and then the practice of Dr. Morton and partners. Thank you very much for the mammograms. I'm sure they're going to be well used. And then, of course, Regan, you and your team at Life Healthcare for working with Nisar and Nazima. When we come out here, we see a few hundred people, and we say, how does all of this happen? I get a note on my desk before I leave office on the night, what I'm supposed to be doing, but it all happens. And then to our broadcasters, Radio Zibaneli and Radio Voice of the Cape, thank you very, very much for carrying out this whole program live. So thousands of other people have listened to the advices and the discussions that happened here tonight. And then all I can say, from outside at both Brimstone and at Life Healthcare, this is our 7th one. We certainly promise you that we'll carry on with this. I think it's a good dialogue to have. I think it's a good lesson for all of us. There are many life lessons in here for all of us. A lot of things which you can all just take home and try and introduce in our own lives to try and see how we can reduce the pain. And yeah, all of us in every family, I'm sure as we sit here, we've had cancer sufferers. Zubaida, who spoke earlier, that's in actual fact my sister. I've got a brother who's suffering from lung cancer at the moment. I lost my mom 22 years ago because of cancer. So it's touched all of us. Nobody's being excluded in actual fact. So I hope all of you have found it very, very encouraging and very, very good. And we hope to carry this on for many, many more years, God willing. And as you have said earlier, all our champions have said, have faith in God and have a supportive family. I think those are the two big, big things which have come through. And I'd want to thank all of you once again for coming out here on a night in Cape Town, but I'm not sure what the weather was going to do. But thank you very much, and we hope to see you again next year. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again from myself, Bailey Schneider. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I would like to end off the evening by welcoming back the beautiful songstress, Madeegha, to end the evening.
Dropped the phone and burst into tears. The doctor just confirmed her fears. Her husband held it in and held it tight. Cancer don't discriminate or care if you're just 38. With 3 kids who need you in their lives. He said, I know that you're afraid, and I am too, but you'll never be alone, I promise you. When you're weak, I'll be strong. When you let go, I'll lean on. And when you need to cry, I swear that I'll be there to dry your eyes. When you get lost and scared to death, you feel you can't take one more step. Just take my hand, together we can do it. I'm gonna love you through it. She made it through the surgery fine. They got it just in time, but they had to take more than they planned. Now he's short smiles and baggy shirts to hide what the cancer took from her. She just wants to feel like a woman again. She said, I don't think I can do this anymore. more. He took her in his arms and said, that's what my love is for. When you are weak, I'll be strong. When you let go, I'll hold on. And when you need to cry, I swear that I'll be there to dry your eyes. When you get lost, scared to death, when you don't need one more step, together we'll take my hand and do it. I'm gonna love you through it. You don't need one more step. Together we can do it. Love you through it. I'm gonna love you through it.